Hello,
Hello.
everybody, and welcome to another episode of...
The Super Data Brothers Super Show.
That's right, I'm Ryan,
I am Eric.
and we are two real-life brothers who work in the data and analytics industry, and have we got a good one for you today, folks?
You know, we sure do, Ryan. You know, we've got a few things going on. We've got another hero data, our new segment that Ryan trialed for the first time last week. Yep, and then we've got after that we've got some news updates, which we'll be talking about with friend of the show, friend of data, Matt Housley.
That's right. I love having Matt on the show. I feel like Matt always brings such a good perspective to the news of the day. And of course, folks, this is a live show. And what that means is that your questions, your opinions, your spicy takes on whatever we're saying, you get them in the chat and we will read them out live during the show. We will ask Matt any questions you have about anything, the topics we're talking about, or anything else related to data. We're happy to do it. And of course, if you let us know where you're watching from, we'll give you a shout out as we go. So really excited for the show today. Super happy to have you here. But before we go any further, a word from our sponsor. That's right. Good Data is the season 4 sponsor of the Super Data Brothers show. Did you know that Good Data was one of the vendors that moved the furthest on the Gartner Magic Quadrant for analytics and business intelligence in 2025? Well, I did, because I wrote the application. This Good Data is an end-to-end analytics and AI platform that is really focused on giving you the tooling you need to make the perfect experience for your customers. So other BI tools are really kind of general purpose tools. Hey, we're going to give 1,000 licenses of Power BI to our analysts, and magic and value will emerge from them doing stuff. Good Data is for when it really matters. Your output really matters. There's revenue on the line. There's an incredible customer service or experience you're trying to deliver. That's when you call Good Data in. So check them out at gooddata.com. All right, let's bring Matt on and get things rolling here.
All right.
Hey,
Matt.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you, man. I think you and Joe are probably tied for most guest appearances on the Super Data Brothers show. And
Nice.
Shantona Tully, she's been on a ton too.
Oh, nice. We need to get Tony on here sometime soon. I thought
Yes.
about inviting him this morning even, but it was like very last minute.
Oh yeah, you know what? I should have thought of that. It'd be great to have you guys on. So why don't you, for anybody, I think most of our audience is probably familiar with you, but for anybody who doesn't know you, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be in academia. I was a math professor for a while, got into data science, shifted to data engineering like a lot of people, and eventually wrote a book called Fundamentals of Data Engineering. And so I would say that's my main claim to fame right now, incidentally, with Joe Reese, the other kind of tied record setters for being on the show.
Yeah, that's if you haven't read the book, of course, check it out. Phenomenally successful. Like, it's still at the top of the data charts, is it not?
Yeah, it's still selling reasonably well, so that's exciting.
That's so awesome. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us. So why don't we kick things off with our hero of data? So every week we bring you a hero of data, someone you may or may not have heard of, who helped establish our field that you should know about. And this week it is William Playfair. So listen, I had never heard of this guy till I started doing some research, but the reality is every bar chart, every line graph, every pie chart, whether you think that's good or bad, you've ever seen, you have William Playfair, a Scottish con artist who died broke and forgotten, to thank. So William Playfair was born in 1759 near Dundee. He invented, this is the inventor of the line graph, the bar chart, and the pie chart. Over the course of about 15 years, he came up with those. So before him, all data lived in tables. When and where it was collected, it was only done in tables. And after him, we can see data. At 21, he actually worked as a draftsman for James Watt, the guy who invented the steam engine. And Watt did not have a super high opinion of Playfair. He called him a blunderer. Was one of his comments about him. But in 1786, he published the book, The Commercial and Political Atlas, which had 43 line charts and one bar chart that gave an overview of England's trade. And this was really the first attempt to visualize data. Before this, people would have just looked at numbers. He actually invented the bar chart because he didn't have enough data points for Scotland in order to make a line graph. Like, the line graph just didn't look good. It was too short. So he came up with the bar chart, just drew bars instead. and invented the bar chart on the spot, I think, in a piece of divine inspiration. So
for something from my hand, like, this is not bad.
yeah, I know. They look really good, don't they? He knew what he was doing. One of his quotes is, "No study is less alluring or more dry and tedious than statistics," he wrote, "unless the mind and imagination are set to work." So certainly a luminary of our field. But here's the thing about this guy. His biography, this is probably the biggest badass in the history of data, okay? He was a land swindler, a blackmailer, an embezzler. He was a British spy during the Revolutionary War, right? He was personally at the storming of the Bastille. He sold land in the United States, in America, that his company did not own, and then fled the United States. He was convicted of fraud in 1805. So quite a life this guy lived. His charts are genius, but contemporaries actually dismissed them. So his old boss Watt called this mere plumbery. He was not impressed with the invention of visualizations, and called Playfair himself a rascal. And the general feeling at the time was that geometry had no place in the science of economics. Playfair died in 1823. He was broke and banned from polite society, and it took 50 years for visualization to catch on, and for the world of seeing data with your eyes instead of reading numbers really came into play. So today we make billions of charts a year using these methods. Statisticians call him the father of infographics. So next time you are clicking around in Tableau or Good Data, or chatting with ChatGPT to build a chart, think of William Playfair, the scoundrel who turned numbers into pictures.
Even circular pictures.
And this is a controversial one. I don't know if you might want to get that off the screen.
Yeah.
I feel like though it's like early attitudes toward the GUI. Some people thought it was just an amazing idea that you could interact with pictures to control a computer, and other people are like, this is complete nonsense. Everything is going to be a CLI. That's where the real stuff happens.
Yeah, I can. I was talking to someone who told me when SQL first came out, they thought like, oh, everyone will learn how to read this and write it because it's just as easy as learning English, right? That didn't quite happen. We do got a couple of people, so I'm gonna do my best on this one. Olada Meiji, thanks for coming here, man. Good to have you from Calgary. What part of our Canadian contingent? Michael Dunphy, welcome back to the show. Michael's one of our regulars. It's good to have you, man. Awesome. He says fundamentals of data engineering was very helpful moving upstream from report development. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
And then Richard Ashton tuning in from the UK. He says he's seen worse charts. So certainly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
shouldn't all these bars be a different color for no reason?
Yeah, in 3D.
Yeah.
Remember the you don't see these much anymore, but remember the 3D pie charts of like the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
After Windows came out, like, and everyone had Excel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 I like the 3D scatter plot where it's like bubbles hovering in 3D space, like totally unreadable.
Right. I feel like those are good. Yeah. If you can rotate the view and kind of visual, but static, it's completely worthless. It's just,
it's terrible. All right, so let's jump into the news. A lot going on this week. The first thing to talk about, of course, is the AMD and OpenAI deal, a new twist in the circular AI economy. So
yes,
for those of you who aren't aware, the story here is that OpenAI signed a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar deal with AMD to secure up to 6 gigawatts of GPU capacity starting in 2026. And of course, this was another one of those AI deals where, what we find is that the deal itself is really about like stock trading hands between the companies. So, Matt, I don't know if, do you know the particulars of how many, like, I think it's something like it's some huge number of stock, like 160.
I thought it was like 10% of the shares or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I think it was 10%.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
So they issued like 10% shares, basically. Yeah.
And this is following up a really similar deal with NVIDIA that was announced like just last week, isn't it?
Right. And NVIDIA has been playing these games for a while with a lot of startups, right? Where at least some of their revenue on paper was coming from these investments where they would say, okay, we will give you GPUs in exchange for stock in your company. Your valuation is this many billion. Therefore, we brought in this much money. Now, NVIDIA, let's don't get me wrong, they still have really good cash flow, but there are a lot of games here to get like really good quarterly numbers and such that are going on.
Yeah. I mean, it almost feels like there's this, you know, like it's the same dollars that are just
circulating,
being counted like
Yeah.
7 times on different balance sheets, and there you go.
There, I found this from some helpful person on Reddit. So yeah, this is
well, and for a while now. So in one of OpenAI's rounds, SoftBank kind of came in and said, okay, we're going to provide, you know, I forget, 100 billion, some crazy number of dollars. But they did the round, and SoftBank didn't have the money right away. I still don't know if they ponied up. And part of the deal for them is that they are borrowing money to invest it in OpenAI. And then their lenders are like, okay, but you know, is this a serious thing? And so it's like this game to like establish credibility, like, oh, NVIDIA is investing in you, therefore you're a serious company, therefore we'll loan SoftBank money to invest in you.
Yeah.
It's totally wild.
It is crazy. I mean, do you think there's starting to be a lot more talk of oh, this is all a bubble, and I think, you know, we have to separate the economics and what's going on with you know, the flow of dollars from the technology itself here.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't checked the numbers lately, but I think NVIDIA occupies a massive slice of the S&P 500 index at the moment, right? Because it is market cap weighted. And that's the problem. Like if they go down, say, 50% or something like that, then the index drops dramatically. That is a lot of people's retirement funds and things.
Yeah, something like what? Yeah, like at this point, what? I don't remember the number, but it's like some very high percent of like the entire market value is basically OpenAI, NVIDIA, and all these like all these major tech companies.
It's all tied up in AI.
Yeah.
Even the stock gains in, you know, Microsoft and Google that have, I mean, Google, I think, is not performing great because of the threat to their search business. But certainly, you know, a huge part of Microsoft's surging valuation has been their attachment to OpenAI, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, having Copilot early brought in a lot of investors who otherwise would not have considered Microsoft, from my perspective.
Yeah.
So Google's an interesting one too, because they're actually quietly, like, we'll see how this evolves, but they're quietly in the hardware business too. And the problem for a long time is, so they have something called a TPU, a tensor processing unit. And they developed that years ago because they thought the cost of machine learning was a major problem, right? They were doing this, you know, they've been doing this for a long time for their Google Brain product. And so initially TPUs were just for inference, and you could only rent them through Google Cloud. So you as an outsider could rent them, but only through Google Cloud. And then over time, they've added the capability to do training. So now the latest generation of TPUs was used to train their Gemini models. And I believe they're now willing to like sell them to other clouds, which is a big deal. I think people's concern for a long time was that they didn't want to buy from Google, who would be a potential competitor to them in the actual model space. So I don't know. It's just there's so many moving parts here. I can't make sense of it.
Yeah. Do you have any read like on the hardware itself? Is there, you know, NVIDIA's valuation is driven because up to this point, it seems like almost everything has been done on their hardware. Is AMD close? Like, is it competitive enough that AMD could grab some market share here? I have no idea.
So I think what it comes down to is AMD chips are perfectly capable of doing training, but the AI ecosystem of engineers does not like their chips because they don't run CUDA. And CUDA is essentially the standard if you're going to do training. But there's this long-term discussion that increasingly the more AI scales, the more inference we're going to be doing, and the more important that is. And AMD chips are great for inference, and they may at some point become better ecosystem-wise for training as well. But obviously, the last time I checked, I think AMD's valuation is like 350 billion, something like this. And that is a tiny fraction of NVIDIA's valuation. And so there is a big question here if somehow they're going to, you know, scale up massively, because just given cost structure and everything else, AI engineers are going to say we have to use AMD chips because of the cost of the NVIDIA hardware.
It's possible. We do have a comment here from Michael Dunphy. He says Google is the modern Bell Labs, pretty undervalued, all things considered.
That is a really astute comparison. To be frank, I mean, Google. I was a Google partner. Just full disclosure, I was a Google partner for a long time through our consulting business, Ternary Data, and their technology is awesome, but they've always kind of struggled to sell it to outsiders. Google Cloud, I think, is a really great platform both for AI and just for traditional data. And they've always struggled to get people onboarded onto it. And so that is an interesting long-term question to see if that'll change someday.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, well, I mean, you see that in the data space, right? Their technology is good, but you just don't see the like BigQuery, for example. I mean, I would say, versus Snowflake or Databricks, like we just haven't seen the adoption. I will tell you, in my work, I tend to run into Google a lot in kind of the startup space and in education.
Yeah. I work in university. I work in education, and so like we like have started doing like partnerships with like the Google Cloud platform, and then also OpenAI, and just the comparison between the Google Cloud platform and OpenAI. The Google Cloud platform is so far ahead as far as like stuff that we need. Like we need to like be able to handle like billing from individual apartments. Google can do that sort of stuff. Like integration with Active Directory for like control permissions. Google can do that. Like just the entire platform seems way more mature. And it's like when we go to talk to OpenAI about a problem, we're talking to a chatbot. When we go to talk to Google, we have a rep we talk to. So like Google is growing way more like in the university space, I think, just because like OpenAI, they're Silicon Valley. They don't really understand what like real companies need. It's like, you need to integrate with Active Directory. You just do.
And for a long time, that was the accusation made against Google, right? Like I would say a decade ago or 15 years ago, people would still say, I try to call up Google for commercial level service to say, hey, I have a problem I need to fix, and I can't get anyone on the phone. And so OpenAI is at that spot right now, forcing you to choose chatbots to solve like really difficult issues.
Yeah, that's frustrating. We have a question. Google, it's a statement. Google BigQuery ML is just great. Doesn't get enough talk.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. Let's shift gears a little bit here. It's rumor season. It's always rumor season in the technology industry. But this one dropped a couple weeks ago, and I thought you'd be a good person to help us think it through. Of course, there was I think it's a single report, right? That
from the information, correct?
Yep. That cites multiple inside sources saying Fivetran is in talks to acquire DBT Labs in a merger that could be worth the number I read, I think, was $5 to $10 billion.
Interesting. Yeah. That is fascinating. And to me, as we were discussing before the show, this isn't really so much a rumor because the information is a reliable source. Like they have people they're talking to. Of course, we don't know if it'll happen or yet, right? Nothing has been decided. I'm sure they're still fighting over terms, or who knows? Maybe they've even walked away at this point. The funny thing is, and I don't know if you got exposed to this, but like there have been rumors of this for years. Honestly, I mean, I heard about it from people from these companies like back in maybe 2022 that there had been talks already back then, and I don't know that they went anywhere, but like there were discussions where Fivetran is like, hey, would you be interested in selling to us? This kind of thing. So,
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I think there's a couple angles here, right? The first one in my mind is, and we'll get to this with the next news item too, but is just the continued consolidation of kind of the late 2010s crop of cool data tools.
Right.
And we see that across the board with lots of acquisitions. The other one is has DBT or Fivetran or maybe both kind of fallen into the we raised a ton of money in 2021 trap.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a very high valuation on that raise, right? It's not like they were selling 50% of the stock to get that money. They were selling like a tiny percent because their valuation was just sky high.
Huge.
And now they need to justify that. Yeah. And to be frank, a problem for both of these companies is that the initial business model during the modern data stack COVID hype cycle, right? Like everyone was doing data. That's where everything was invested. It was after the Snowflake IPO. But it was like their business model was to offer a very cheap service. Like, oh, this is almost free. Like, just set it up. It's very easy to set up. Integrate it with BigQuery or Snowflake and just turn it on. And then in the last couple of years, they've been cranking the cost of this stuff really, really high. And people are not happy about it because they've got to get the cash flow. And so that becomes more palatable if you can go in and do a contract with two different services that are highly integrated, right? Like when you're starting to pay a lot of money, it's like, okay, but at least I'm getting two things and at least these are part of the same platform.
Yeah, exactly. I do wonder too with DBT in particular, I feel like, a lot of DBT's growth in the early days was driven by their Slack community. I mean,
Yep.
I just feel like they were when I was at Count, which was in 2021 for a year, like everybody was so envious of DBT and this community driven growth that they had done.
Yeah.
And I think now they're experiencing the dark side of that, right? Which is when it does come time to start to harvest dollars, right? When you need that cash flow, like your users discover that your community discovers that actually it wasn't love that you wanted from them the whole time, right? It was money.
It was money.
Yeah. And a lot of these were brought in through the back door, right? Like it was so cheap that if you had a team lead who had a credit card, they could just pay, a small amount of money to get DBT cloud or whatever. And then all of a sudden the big bills started coming in. It's like, whoa, we don't have an enterprise contract with these guys. That starts attracting other unwelcome attention too. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Does this comply with our legal policies? Do they have access to data we don't want them to have access to? And that's been a real headache, I think, for both of these companies, actually.
Yeah. I mean, because that was their route in, was like low acquisition cost, easy, easy to set up, easy to use. You don't have to. The procurement guy doesn't have to know.
Right. Until they do, and then it's suddenly like, wait. This is not how things are supposed to work.
Exactly.
We thought you were subscribing to Gmail or something.
Michael asks, is DBT Core dead? He just picked it up earlier this year and is predominantly what he does for day-to-day work now. So what do you think of the core versus cloud thing going on at DBT?
Okay, so I haven't dug into but my understanding is that they kind of rewrote the code base in their cloud offering to be mostly compatible, but like on a different code base. Is that correct from what you understand?
I don't know either.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, open source business models are tricky, so it doesn't surprise me at all that they've moved in this direction. And then I think there are fundamental questions here about, can you, if you don't like what DBT is doing, can you fork it and go off that happened with, what was it, Valkey with Redis, where someone's like, well, I don't like, they changed the license basically so that they could have code in their offering that they didn't release to the public. And so someone forked it and said, hey, we're going to just do our own version. We don't need to stay in sync with Redis anymore.
Yeah.
I guess for Michael, I would say as long as it's working for you, keep using it. They can't take away the code that's out there. And then the question is, license-wise, would someone ever be allowed to fork it if they just, because this happens all the time.
And then I also wonder, like, if they create this like big community of people basically using DBT Core for free, how are they going to get people to start paying for cloud? Like, why would you buy the cloud cow when you're getting the open source milk for free, right?
Yes,
exactly. Yeah. And I think back in so I did a client eval of DBT Cloud back in like 2021 or something. And back then it just wasn't good. I'm like, I would not bother with this. I think it's gotten a lot better since then, which is why they actually have subscribers. But if they start to crank the price, then you're going to say, all right, if I can get the milk for free elsewhere, even if it has somewhat fewer features, then maybe I'll do that instead.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry, Michael, too much though, about, okay, is this a useful skill to have, right?
Yeah,
whether you're doing it on core or cloud, I think being good at DBT is going to be an advantage for your career either way. So don't sweat it too much.
Yeah. It reminds me of these debates I see on like Reddit and Hacker News about like, what's a real data engineer? And you got the hardcore people are like, oh, you only use Spark. And then there are other people who are like, SQL is really useful. And like, if you're a good data engineer, you should know both. Like you should know SQL and other stuff too.
Yeah. Michael follows up that they're shifting from DBT Cloud anyway for orchestration, but it'd be a pretty big headache if it was no longer open source. Yeah.
I mean, I would check the license. I don't think they can. So the only case you do have to watch out for certain things in the licensing terms. So they can't really make the code not public anymore, right? But what can happen is if there's language in the license that allows them to charge you if you're a commercial user. So we saw this happen with Docker, basically, where Docker got into all these different companies, and then all of a sudden they started showing up and saying, hey, you owe us licensing fees, even though this is an open source tool. It's happened in a variety, and that's become very common because companies do actually need to make money. So I'd almost have legal just look over the terms and make sure that there are no gotchas like that.
Yeah. At the very least, drop it into ChatGPT and see what it says.
Yeah,
And ask.
have ChatGPT tell you.
All right. In other news going on in the data industry, I did want to highlight this because I think it goes along with the DBT and Fivetran story, which is Qlik has launched or GA'd what they call their open lakehouse. So there's two things that are interesting here to me. One is the story of acquisition of smaller players by bigger players in order to create these end-to-end platforms is something that's clearly going on right now. And Qlik purchased Talend in 2023, I believe, and then Upsolver earlier this year. Actually, I think the deal was announced in order to kind of give them this data movement, like data transformation, data pipeline, and now kind of iceberg capabilities. And this is a tool that, to be clear, up until they were publicly traded for a while, and then they went private equity. And up until that point, there had never been any ambitions to be anything other than a BI tool, as far as I could see. Yeah. And so kind of here you see an example. There've been lots of acquisitions, closer to the source systems in the stacks. Snowflake's buying people all the time. Right. We talk about DBT and Fivetran potentially merging, but here you see, I think, an example of a BI tool that's trying to kind of build to the left, and get closer to the actual data itself. And so, have you? I mean, Qlik is a pretty old school BI tool at this point.
Have you encountered them ever? Yeah, I haven't used it much at all. So, yeah,
it's very popular here in Europe. I think it was originally a Swedish company, or one of the Scandinavian countries, and so so it has a really huge enterprise deploy base in Europe. But in the United States, I don't think it ever caught on in a major way.
So one of the interesting things I noticed, and you work for a European company, so you might have seen this too. When I went to Big Data London, I didn't go this year, but a couple of years back, I noticed that the companies, the vendors there, were almost completely different. Like there wasn't a lot of intersection between the vendors that were there versus the vendors you would see at a conference in the US. And I thought there was more like globalization of software products. I'm like, oh, this is interesting that stuff people use here is just different.
Yeah, it is. It's very true. I will tell you, I think that, look, prediction hat time, I think that might even accelerate going forward because of the geopolitical situation in the world.
Actually.
Yeah. I was at Big Data Utrecht in, 3 weeks ago. And I talked to a ton of people. And I mean, like, I'm obviously American, right? You talk to me for 5 seconds, I'm an American. And well,
because they can hear you from across the conference.
That's exactly. And you're right. They can hear me from across the conference. I'm talking with my hands a lot. And, standing too close. So they would always ask, it came up pretty quickly, like, okay, so where's the company based? Like, you're an American. Is it an American company? Is the data housed in the United States?
Yeah.
And for us, it's like we are headquartered in America, but we're really a Czech company, right? Yeah. And we have a EU data center, and it's GDPR compliant, and all the, like, we're very good at keeping up with all the EU data standards. But I think so you're right. It's totally different vendors. And I mean, long story short, I don't know. I can see that even like that gap even widening.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because this is even an issue in open source. So for example, one of my friends worked for a Chinese open source company, said, American companies don't want to use Chinese Chinese-centered open source, even though it's open source. And there are just a lot of geopolitics around code. I mean, to some extent, that's fair. Like Richard Stallman's dream of free software was that you would just look at the software and you could see that it was secure, but in practice, Code is really
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah.
It's really complicated. Yeah. I mean, this is the debate I've seen. I know like Star Rocks is a
Yeah.
very interesting
That's what I was
is a
thinking
very
of.
interesting MPP engine. But I
Mhm.
wonder, if you're Bank of America, are you
Yeah.
ever going to install Star Rocks in any of your data centers? Like, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it seems like you could kind of get your own engineers to vet the code, but then you would be
Yeah.
nervous about every new commit to come in. Like,
Exactly.
can we trust this? Like, can we trust who's doing the commit? And that's been a problem, frankly, even with American-based open source.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Stuff with the
Wasn't
Linux
there-
kernel and SSH
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, wasn't there a huge backdoor that like got caught by one random guy? It's like, why is this operation taking twice as long as it used to? It's like, oh, this is a backdoor that's been worked on for the past year that was about to go.
And then
Like,
putting these commits in, and it's great.
There's a comment here from Dilwar. He says nearly all of the BI stalls at Big Data London were about NLQ and moving
Interesting.
away from static dashboards. Do you think the industry will move away totally from legacy stuff like IBM Cognos Analytics and even Power BI to companies like Good Data and Pyramid Analytics, et cetera, that are leading in the AI BI field? Well, certainly,
I mean, they're all
would
moving
love
to
that.
Good Data, right?
yeah,
Exactly. The answer is yes, Dilwar, and let me put you in touch with our sales team. No, I mean, look, I think I'll take a quick stab at this, Matt, but I'm really interested in what you and Eric think. I would say no, like we're not moving completely away from dashboards.
Yeah.
No.
The way we build them might change, but there's really
Yes.
not a. I was talking to someone about this the other day. Like dashboards and visualizations have there's actually a science behind them, and like why they're powerful is because they engage our pre-attentive processing in the ocular nerve, right? And so you're not going to you cannot overcome that with text generation.
Yes.
And so that's kind of my take on it. I don't know, Eric, Matt.
Yeah. And then I'd say like if a dashboard already has what you need from like a financial analyst, or it's like it's less thinking to go to the dashboard that you already know has what you need than it is to ask a chatbot every time.
Yeah. Well, and I'll point out something else too, which is the last time I was on the show, you showed me a demo of a tool where you type in, a query and then it auto generates a dashboard using LLMs. I forget the name of the tool. You probably remember.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that was a really cool demo. However, the problem with that version of natural language querying is that dashboards really need to be vetted if I'm going to put them into production before I show them management. I mean, I know people are doing this stuff without vetting things, but that's going to lead to bad results. Like when people find out, oh, this query doesn't do what I thought it did. This number is not the same number that we use over here in this other place in the company. So even if we're doing more natural language querying, like stuff has to be vetted so that it's consistent and auditable,
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkably hard to get an LLM to just say, I don't know, or I don't have that data, right? They really try very hard to answer your question, and they will just make it up if they have to.
And it's analogous to a psychological phenomenon that occurs often in people with brain damage, and that is something called confabulation. And confabulation means that your executive function that tells you, oh, you shouldn't lie, you should try to say true things that are based on real information, that is damaged in such a way that you'll just make things up. When people ask you like, oh yeah, it's this, this, and this, and LLMs do the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
They do it with data too, right?
It's wild. So look, like my overall take on the BI market is it's just going to become a lot more dynamic. I think, and we were due for that before all this LLM stuff. When we started Super Data Brothers in 2020 or 2021, like our very first episode, I think, was like, we are sick and tired of the way BI is done. Somebody please come up with something else. And so I think that's what we're seeing. And AI will be a part of it, but it won't be. I mean, it will be. It will be the driver behind it, but it's not going to completely obliterate all of our old ways, our old data presentation styles.
And people like to talk about, especially in the data space, like if you're active, like, oh, the old tools are going to die and be dead. Our first, I think our first episode, our clickbait was, is Tableau dead? So like people like to talk about being dead. Like the comment mentions IBM Cognos, and if most new people probably into data probably don't even know what IBM Cognos is. But lots of huge enterprises are still totally dependent on IBM Cognos to the point where they basically cannot get rid of it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
And these companies, Microsoft is sort of the leader in this area right now, but these companies have really dug into updating their products to add
Yes.
LLM interfaces and things,
Yes.
and they're hiring a lot of talent to make that happen. The results are mixed, right? Some have taken old tools and really updated them, and like, oh, this is actually not just a fresh coat of paint, and others are, you're like, okay, this is just a tacked on feature. But I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised to see, I don't know what's going on with Cognos, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of update, and it might actually be good because IBM has resources.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they certainly can throw talent at a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael asks, do you think there'll ever be a viable open source BI tool other than something like Superset that isn't really complete for most developers? I'm going to just say no, but
I'm going to say no. I'd say the best one. I'll be doing what's the
Review?
other? What's the other one besides Superset that I'm going to review?
Metabase.
I always want to call it Mode. No, it's not Mode. It's Metabase. Yeah. So I've been looking into Metabase a little bit, and I've already did a Superset review.
Yeah.
And I'd say probably the completely open source BI tool is Superset.
Yeah.
And it's not anything I would ever put in front of users to build their own dashboards or anything like that.
Interesting.
I would never do that. Like Superset really is a tool to like, oh, I need an embedded solution. Like I can devote developers to like customize this open source Superset to be my embedded solution, so I don't have to pay for anything. That's what Superset's great for. But like, as far as like, hey, we want to get rid of BI and go to Superset, I would say do not do that. I have heard people that like go from like Power BI to not Mode. Why do I keep blanking on the name?
Metabase
from Power BI to Metabase. I haven't looked into it yet, but I've read comments. I've been researching a little bit, and like they're like, some people have been happy with that going to the paid version, which is still a lot cheaper than Power BI. But like, as far as like completely open source, it takes a lot of money and a lot of like planning over years and product development to make a good BI tool, and I just don't see an open source one being able to do that.
Yeah, and this gets back to why cloud is popular. Is cloud always cheaper? Not necessarily, but people want services that just do the job. If I'm a finance company or logistics company, even if I have good software engineering internally, I just want someone to take care of it for me, right? I just want to pay someone to, usually there are exceptions, but I just want it to work. And I want to be able to call someone up and complain when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Jason makes the point here. Dashboards are still the best way to convey and consume massive amounts of information. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And there is a problem of dashboard proliferation that still exists. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like we need to prune, we need to figure out what the executives want and build very specific dashboards. But overall, these are tools that are used all the time.
And then Val says, humans perceive the world visually, among other senses. So a dashboard of sorts will always be useful. How we get to create the dashboard, now that's an interesting conversation. Yes. And I do think that is what's going to change a lot.
Yeah. I do feel like I'm a bit mixed on this. So when Siri first came out, everyone was like, voice interfaces, we're all going to be using voice. It's not really true anymore.
No.
I think LLMs are here to stay, but I think some of the stuff we're trying to do with text may not blow up the way people think it's going to, just like you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think the future BI interface that I can imagine is some kind of, it's almost like, pair programming for business users to answer questions, right?
Yeah.
So you ask a question and you see on the screen its reasoning and how it attempted to answer it. And then you can iterate by asking further questions.
Yeah.
And you would still, in my mind, still want to do point and drag analysis, or at certain times, right? So kind of marrying those two things together in an interactive canvas, I think look where I think it's headed.
Well, and it's that auditability, right? Like you're, as an analyst using this interface, you need to know enough about SQL and code to say, okay, we're calculating this metric correctly, or we're not calculating it correctly before it goes to executives. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for the question, Val. And then one last comment from Michael. Non-deterministic versus deterministic is a major bottleneck, especially when trust in data is such an easily lost value.
Yep. Agree. Yeah.
All right, and then the final piece of news. So the fall BI capability updates. Look, this is just a lot of our BI tools have gone to a kind of a quarterly release cycle. or monthly, and so a bunch of features dropped in the last couple of weeks. So I'll just run down a few of them, and then we can kind of pick out any themes that we see. But Power BI Copilot is now on by default, and you can now do model editing directly in the browser. And so that's a change. Like Copilot, you had to turn it on. Now it's just on for all users. Tableau launched a new feature called Inspector, which is an agent that flags insights and then pushes alerts directly into Slack. So I think this is kind of where you see the Salesforce portfolio. Of course, it makes sense, right? Like, why not use Slack as a primary data consumption interface? Because so many people spend so much of their day there. We talked about the Qlik Open Lakehouse, ThoughtSpot, and others have started the Open Semantic Interchange. So
yes,
that's pretty interesting. We might want to talk about that.
we
Hex has
should.
rolled out what's called AI threads. So this is another chat-based analysis tool that
Yeah.
writes code. And then Sigma has launched AI Builder, which creates dashboards from prompts. And so I think, look, the story is everybody is in BI is rapidly adding this, type in some text and have it make a thing feature set. But beyond that, I want to hear your take on the Open Semantic. What do they call it again? It's OSI, Open Semantic Interchange.
Yeah, so we actually, Tony Bear and I recorded an interview with someone who was involved, which should be coming out soon. I can't say too much about it now, but that should be out soon. As far as we could get information, it sounds like it's still early stages of this.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of a work in progress. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the details. We are actually discussing this before the show, right? Like a lot of things get called semantic layers. I want to see what they're actually doing in detail. And if it fulfills the need, if it really can give me metric consistency and do that across different platforms, because that is the whole point of this, that you can take that semantic, what is my definition of customer? What is my definition of profit for sales or something? And transfer that between tools. That's always been a hard problem, right? Even when you had a good semantic layer, typically it was attached to a specific system with a specific schema. And so I'm excited to see them try to solve this problem and see what kind of progress they make so that I can take a metric and say ThoughtSpot and move it over to Snowflake to run directly on the data or something like this.
Yeah. That's the dream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That like model it once and use it in Tableau and Power BI and all this other stuff. That's like,
interop is so hard, right? Like it's
hard.
One of the biggest problems in IT forever is just basic interop. Even when you create a standard, it's so hard to get people to comply with it. Just look at SQL.
Yeah, exactly. There was an attempt to do an open source semantic layer that I can't remember what it was called. I was really briefly involved with it in 2020. And it, clearly didn't achieve liftoff. I think it's just a really hard problem to solve. This interoperability is not easy.
And it's just very maintenance intensive too, I think is part of the problem. And so, I, as an open source developer, it's just like 1,000 paper cuts I'm constantly having to deal with. And so you really need a good motivation to do that. And so if the right company is involved and they're willing to actually support the open source and apply resources to it, great. But I'm just waiting to see, we've seen similar things in the data catalog space, like Apache Atlas, I think was one of the, and what do we have now? Data Hub. So there has been some maturation, but it's taken a long time to get something that resembles a real data catalog in the open source world. And so I'm like, okay, can that happen in semantics too?
Yeah, it was. I will say, it may just be marketing at this point, but the list of logos was good on the announcement. So
if they're serious about it, then this can absolutely happen. Linux is the classic example of it's really a collaboration project between companies. Let's face it. The volunteers do a lot of work, hopefully get paid for it, but it's all these different companies to work together. Can this happen here? I hope so.
So here we have people keep saying Metabase is very basic, but it's functional. Functional is good. Yeah, a lot of times it is.
Yeah.
Jason Moffat says, if you've ever used Copilot to update a Word doc, it makes me incredibly frightened to have it updating anything in Power BI.
Wow.
And then here's a good question. So Michael's going to Coalesce next week. So first of all, have fun. Coalesce, in my experience, is a really cool conference.
And they actually have good food, unlike like AWS conferences.
Yeah.
Like
Oh man.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I it's funny. I go to a lot of Gartner conferences, and the Gartner Data and Analytics conference between Orlando and London, like you can tell, is organized by different people because of the food. Like the food in London. I mean, nobody says, oh, the UK is not known for having incredible food, but it was much better than the food in Orlando.
Okay.
Michael Dunphy wants to know any advice for someone who doesn't typically go to a data conference, except for a handful of Tableau ones, though that's becoming less useful. RIP.
That's a good question. Yeah, how do you get something out of a data conference? I feel like a lot of it is the conversations. I mean, go to the talks that look interesting, but like
Yeah.
try to just talk to people about industry trends and career recommendations and such.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Yep.
that's 100% what I would do. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I heard about DuckDB, because like the Mother Duck guys were at Data Day Texas in 2021 or whatever the first one we went to was. It's like, oh, this is actually seems really cool. Now I've used it, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. It's fast. So
it's like amazingly good for something that runs on a single node, right?
It is. Michael, I think my advice to you would be, go to the most interesting presentations and talks, and then like talk to people. Like I would, see where the vendor parties are, go have a few drinks, and just talk, like meet your peers, see what problems they have and what they're trying to solve. I mean, that to me, that's the most valuable part of these events.
Yeah. And try to, when you say peers, try to track down people who are maybe one step ahead of you in experience and say, okay, what are my next steps here? And what do you think is changing with the LLM dashboard stuff or whatever interesting trend is going on?
Yeah. Dilwar says, if you use Copilot to write SQL, it seems to have GPT-5 enabled now. I will admit, I have not actually used Copilot very much at all. Mm-hmm. So I can't give any real opinions on its capability set. Although I do see people complaining. Like I saw on Reddit, someone was like, isn't this supposed to be based on ChatGPT? Why does it seem so much worse?
Interesting.
And so, that's just an anecdote, but that's kind of my experience with it.
You guys know Dave Langer, right?
I don't think
He's
so.
like an Excel guy. He's a big Excel advocate.
Oh, yes. I know who you're talking about.
Publishing a book on Python and Excel. And he talks a lot about how you can use Copilot now to write, Excel Python, which is cool. But he has this in his book. He has this example where Copilot completely goes off the rails and it lies to him about what it's done. So you always have to check these tools.
You always have to check them. Carl says conferences are good for general ideas that give you ideas and a sense of what's happening. And then Val says, networking and trends, the buzz in the street. Everyone is selling stuff, so it's hard to get good insight from the vendor stalls. Yeah, I mean, guilty as charged.
Yeah. Well, but I feel like, okay, so there are some vendor people like you guys, honestly, like you, whom I really trust, because I know that you'll give me the real thing, right? If I talk to you in privately, like, okay, this and this is going on. I feel like I talked to Ryan Boyd as a guy at Mother Duck, and he'll always tell me the truth about whatever's going on. You just kind of have to recognize the people who are really honest and will give you industry perspective versus the like pure sales, like, oh, this is the best thing ever, and it will solve all your problems, and it's magic.
Yeah, I find Ryan Boyd is good for that too. Just add Ryan Jansen from Zenlytic into the mix, and you have like the three Ryans in data.
The Rifecta.
Yeah, the Rifecta. Damn, that was good. Damn. All right. So we got about 10 minutes left. Listen, you guys have been a great active audience. I want to thank you so much for joining us here. If you do not follow us on YouTube, okay, go to YouTube, the Super Data Brothers channel. We do the live show when we're in season every Thursday, but I also post a lot of content there. I did a ton of interviews at Big Data London, for example. I just posted one this morning, I believe, or yesterday with Scott Taylor, the data whisperer that I did.
Yeah, saw that.
Scott's an awesome guy. So look, if you like this kind of thing, there's a lot more of it on the YouTube channel. So go there, subscribe, click the bell so you get notified when we go live, so you don't miss these sessions. And we have a TikTok now too, if you're into that. Personally, I'm too old, but I post there, so whatever. So follow us on TikTok. So we got about 10 minutes left. Of course, real quick, I do have to thank the season sponsor, Good Data. Good Data is kind of an analytics as code focused platform. So one of my favorite things about Good Data, the second L in LLM is language. And this is a BI tool that was built from the ground up to be open. Every object is a versionable YAML file. You can do literally everything on the platform with both declarative and imperative APIs. We have React libraries. We have, the Good Data Python library. So really, this is, when it comes to using AI, not just in your BI tool, but to build your BI tool, we really fit in incredibly well with your kind of AI-driven development workflow. We have a client I did a presentation with from Acclamio who uses Cursor and Good Data. And the stuff this guy is able to do with our BI platform is just totally mind-blowing. Because we have all of these things available. So check it out at gooddata.com. All right. We got about 10 minutes left, 8 minutes left, actually, Matt. So I do kind of want to just get your temperature on the AI hypometer. Obviously, the hype is very high.
But so is the skepticism, right? Like everyone is talking openly. Jeff Bezos and even Sam Altman, God forbid, is talking about how there's a lot of hype right now.
Yeah, I mean it's off the charts. And what is like the other thing I kind of see is like someone mentioned, okay, all the BI vendors now have some sort of natural language query to some data display. Which tells me that okay, that wasn't true last year at Big Data London. So there is a build out going on with these features set. I mean, what is the distance between the hype and reality right now?
It feels like it's significant, right? Like you did the demo on the show of the tool that would build the dashboard. Just you put in a query public data set, it builds the dashboard. And that is very exciting, right? When you see that, even I'd seen a lot of demos and that was very magical to me, but it goes back to what we were saying just a little while ago. In a corporate environment, I need like auditable data. I need to actually, if I'm going to give that to executives, I need to be able to back it up and say, yes, this is exactly what it's doing. And so I don't know. I think I'm still very skeptical of our ability to like replace humans with these tools. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like your example, about the Python going totally off the rails and lying to him like that. I mean, we see that all the time. And I use these tools. Look, I use them constantly. But they, there's still a lot of problems to be solved. And more than, look, the economics are a problem to be solved. It's being totally papered over how much it costs to run these systems now.
That's a big one. So you saw the news about the like Windsurf acquisition that didn't become an acquisition, right? What a lot of people, there was another article that came out after that basically kind of did the inside baseball and said, really what happened is OpenAI was looking at doing that acquisition. And then they started looking into the numbers and they said, oh, with this burn rate, Windsurf is headed toward bankruptcy. Hit the brakes. And that's less of a danger with BI, but I think it's still a danger where it's like, as the real costs of the tools get passed on to the API consumers, the economics are going to make less and less sense going forward.
Yeah. And I don't know, did you see the report? I don't know if you saw this, Eric. I think it was like if you subtract data center construction, the US GDP
growth was like 0.1%.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. It was basically nothing. No GDP growth if you subtract AI data center construction.
Yeah. Well, and it's just wild that like, Bitcoin, electric cars, all these different things that consume a lot of electrical power, as they grew, no one was talking about reactivating nuclear power plants or building new ones. And now all of a sudden we're talking about that. And I think you, Ryan, quoted the acquisition of AMD GPUs in terms of gigawatts. We've gotten to the point where we quote hardware, computer hardware acquisitions in terms of the gigawatts that we'll consume. It just doesn't seem sustainable from the economic or electrical or any of these perspectives.
Yeah. And before this, we were actually we were on track. Like we were like doing better as far as like energy goals for like climate change and that sort of stuff because solar is getting so cheap and so good now.
Right.
Like we're actually on a decent track, not to avoid the worst, to avoid maybe the worst of it, but still have some climate change. But it's just like that's blown out of the water now. It's totally we're totally off track now. For a little bit we were on track. We're totally off track now.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem is that we've created this business model where to justify your valuation, if you're a foundation model developer, you want to show how much money you're spending and how much energy you're using and how many parameters you have. Like there's any rationality about controlling costs has gone out the window. And you always want to increase the amount you're spending actually and just raise more money. And that's what drives your valuation. That can't go on forever. Like something has to change one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, Michael makes a great point here. The railroad bubble peaked at 6% of GDP. AI is currently 1% to 2%. We have a couple more months, maybe.
I think that's interesting. AI is 1% to 2% of GDP, but it's. I just looked this up. By look up, I mean I asked ChatGPT and it looked it up. But like all the AI companies added is about 30% of the U.S. stock market value. So 1% to 2% of the GDP, 30% of the stock market value. This. There's that saying that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. But this has to, at some point, like come back to reality. You'd think, I don't know, I'm not an expert on like, playing pretend with stocks and pretending they actually have value. But apparently everyone else is on Wall Street. So maybe I leave it to them.
Well, and the bargain with investing in tech companies has always been, I am overpaying for this company based on traditional metrics like revenue and profit, because I know that they'll grow in the future and their valuation is going to go up. But when you're already at a $4 trillion valuation, like how much can that valuation go up? Which makes me think, okay, a lot of this is just short-term investment where people are trying to ride the wave up to a $5 trillion valuation. But then at some point, people are going to start getting out because they're like, okay, it's going to go down now. And then where do we head?
Yeah. It's like there are only so many resources on planet Earth. So unless we start mining asteroids, like how it can only grow so much, right?
Well, didn't Sam Altman's, I just saw the headline, so maybe it was sensationalized, but didn't Sam Altman say something about like, well, obviously we just have to build a Dyson swarm?
Oh, maybe he did. I didn't hear that. I did hear his remarks.
God, it's so goofy.
I did hear his headline that said, a substantial portion of all energy on planet Earth should just be running AI.
Yeah.
The AI salesman says that naturally.
Look, I'm very excited by this technology, but there's like what they talk about when it's like it's gonna solve all these scientific problems. It's gonna cure cancer. It's But like, as far as I can tell, what it's used for is like, can we replace our financial analysts? Can it generate cute videos of dogs? Like
Studio Ghibli, right?
I'm just, I'm waiting for the real problems.
Yeah, and it's funny because like AI is being used, like protein folding has come so far with AI, but it's not LLMs.
No,
LLMs are not solving these things, but everyone talks about LLMs because that's one that like me as like a normal person can use and be like, oh, this is cool. But like AI is solving problems like in like biotech, like a lot, but and no one's really talking about that.
Well, and it's great when it solves a problem that you can verify, right? So protein folding, you can take that folded protein, put it into a simulation and see if it's actually stable and see if it actually works. A lot of the claims I'm much more skeptical of. So I've seen claims like, oh, it's inventing new math. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But that's what LLMs do. They invent things. But like, how do we know that this is valid? How are we validating this claim?
It's easy to invent something. Hard to invent something that works.
Yeah. I mean, you can make up random statistics. That doesn't mean that they're useful, right? It doesn't mean that you
exactly
anything about data.
All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour here. So first of all, thank you, Matt, for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
Where can people catch up with you?
Probably LinkedIn is one of the best options. So just look me up on LinkedIn. And we have a podcast and YouTube channel called It's About Data. And that's just at It's About Data. You can find us or just search for us and we'll come up. So
I would just give a quick plug for it. I love the show. I mean, it is one of the things I watch so that I can stay up to speed with what's going on in the industry, and you and Tony do a great job of contextualizing stuff and like telling the story, right? You see these headlines and it's like, where did this come from?
Where did it go?
When you guys are talking about Oracle, for example, and that Oracle piece of news, like I just thought you guys brought a great perspective to it.
Oh, so thank you. Yeah. And the
ahead.
thing I appreciate about having Tony on board is that he comes from like that analytics space of like talking to all these different vendors and understanding what they do. I come from a very different, like, not in Silicon Valley, but this sort of mindset of like modern tools, cloud and everything. And I tended to dismiss that world. And it's like, wait a minute, these companies are massive, like they're everywhere. And and you may have done the same thing at some point, right? If you work for the newer company, you're like, that stuff doesn't matter, but it really does, right? It's all over the place. And so I love that we can bring two different perspectives to the topic.
Yeah, we have a drive-by Joe Reese here saying hello from Montenegro. Hey, Joe, I'm in Prague. Let's meet up in the middle.
Okay.
By the way, last plug here, folks. The Data in the D conference is coming up November 8th. Yeah. So Joe is our keynote speaker, and so if you've never been to beautiful Detroit, and you may laugh when I say that, but like Detroit is America's comeback city. You will be blown away if you come to Detroit and see what we have going on in the city. So if you're local, obviously come check it out, and even if you're not, it might be worth a flight in to see what it is we have going on.
Well, and it's been years since I was there, but like Detroit, last time I was there, had one of the nicest airports I had seen. Maybe you disagree, but like I was coming back from Canada, I'm like, this is really nice.
DTW is a nice airport.
DTW is, I think, this is a big point of debate amongst frequent Delta flyers, which is the best hub. But I'm on Team DT. It's my local airport, but if I lived near O'Hare, I would not tell you O'Hare was great.
It's no Charles de Gaulle, so.
Oh man, Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah. So I'll be at
so massive.
I'll be at Charles de Gaulle tomorrow afternoon. So I look forward to that. All right, we've gone way over. We're gonna wrap things up. Thanks for joining us, Matt. Thanks for being such a great audience. In Vienna next week, hit me up. Thanks for being such a great audience. As always, check us out on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok. Tune in every week. Eric, are we gonna be able to do the Metabase review next Thursday or not?
I'll let you know.
All right. Well, we may have a Metabase deep dive
within the next Thursday. 2 weeks. Awesome. We'll be doing a Metabase review. We'll announce it ahead of time.
These things are hard, folks. Learning a new BI tool to give you a review is not easy.
You basically have to learn it enough that you could get a job for it, essentially. So,
and you have to like get it installed, right? Like just getting all the components installed and running.
Yeah. Actually, with Docker, it's easy. Same with Superset. Getting Superset was easy. I already set up Metabase. It was easy. It's super easy. If you want to productionalize it and set up your own balancing servers and stuff, probably hard. Try it out. Docker version, real easy.
Yeah. Getting Kubernetes up and running is always interesting.
Oh man, yes. All right. So we'll leave it there. Next week, join us next week at the same time, 12 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central European time. Until then, we are the Super Data Brothers. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.